All right, everybody, welcome into KBO Chats Live. I'm Sam Pasco alongside, there he is, Eric Halterman. That way, there he is, that way, however we got it here. We got a great show planned for you today. We're trying to keep this one quick, 20 minutes here, getting you everything you need to know about the KBO upcoming slate. 3-game series coming up, wrapping up the week. In addition to tonight's games, there's some picks and some DFS previews as well. All that good stuff. Eric, how you feeling? We're halfway through our 6 games a week here on the KBO slate. How are you feeling so far?
Not bad. Just doing a lot of watching KBO and writing about KBO and all sorts of various KBO related things, playing some KBO and out of the park baseball, the computer game. So it's a very balanced life these days.
As always, keeping it KBO related, and let's dive in. We got our chats open as well. If you have any comments, if you're watching on Periscope or YouTube, feel free to comment. We'll answer your questions at the end as part of our Q&A. So first up, we're taking a look at our projected starters. We got our graphics here tuned up, so we can go team by team here, taking a look from Doosan to Kia to the Twins. We got them all lined up here. We have some American pitchers. It's a decent slate. Eric, what are your first impressions of seeing Aaron Brooks, Drew Rosinski, and Dan Straley all in this upcoming 3-game series?
It's definitely a few aces at the top. I had a tough time narrowing down which guys to recommend. The best starters tonight are definitely the most expensive, with both Drew Rosinski and Eric Yogish. Brooks is somebody I like too. He just missed my cheat sheet this time because I wanted to give one cheaper option, but there's a lot of elite pitching at the top today, especially.
Would you give the Dinos the edge? Because they also have Mike Wright then going day 2 with a pretty solid ERA following up Rosinski. Do you think they're going to have the edge overall?
Yeah, I mean, look at those 3 pitchers. Rosinski, Wright, and Koo all are probably top 10 in the league this year, and a few of them could even be top 5 or top 1. So it's going to be some great pitching for them. I expect against the Lions offense that really isn't very good. I think they sit 6th, even though they have the league's most hitter-friendly home park. So I'm expecting a bunch of strong performances from the Dinos all weekend.
Looking around the other teams, is there anyone that could surprise you, maybe actually sweep a series or actually go 2-1? Heroes come to mind with Jokic leading the series, but then maybe the Twins with Wilson at the end. Is there anyone else you think could be competitive?
As far as other really interesting series, I think that Heroes Wiz series is the most interesting one to me. You've got the Heroes who were in the Korean series last year, and they're struggling. They're sitting about 10 and 11. And you've got the Wiz, who a lot of people have latched onto for their exciting offense, but they're also struggling, sitting at 9-11. I think if one of those teams manages to break through with a sweep, you could see them being talked about as a legitimate playoff team, whereas right now they're both kind of sitting in that middle bubble area.
All right, so that's what we're looking at right now. Some pitchers to take note of coming into the 3-game series. And we begin our game-by-game preview. So first up, we have the Hanwha Eagles taking on the SK Wyverns. Wyverns, their big theme this entire year has been a lot of losses. They're just 4-16. Jamie Romack has been okay, 10 runs, 260 average. Not horrible, but not amazing. You can see him, a former Diamondback. And over on the Eagles side, we have Jared Hoying, one of the Americans on their side. A little worse, actually, than Romack, just 217 average. Anything notable in this series between the Eagles and the Wyverns?
Well, we're definitely starting off with the fun one. This is easily the worst series here. Two quite bad teams this far, which from a fantasy perspective, in theory, means you got some pitchers worth looking into. I actually recommended the Wyverns' Tae-Hoon Kim tonight, mostly because he's playing the Eagles. There's just not much of a threat there. And to make things even better, as you can see, that Eagles lineup has so many lefties at the top, and he's a lefty. So that just makes them comparatively even more weak. Kim has been at least moderately interesting this year. So I'm definitely interested in him tonight. I could see pretty much any of the 6 pitchers as a dart throw just because of their easy assignments they'll be facing this week.
Is Jared Hoying offensively, are either of these guys someone that people should target? Because they're not putting up good numbers when you look at their average and what they're projected to do over the entire 2020 season.
Right. They're not guys I've been drawn to very often. Based on their numbers, I would hope that their prices have been dropping, but I don't think I've seen them drop nearly as much as they'd like. Obviously, with pretty much any foreign hitter in the KBO, you figure they're over there for a reason. You're only allowed one. They better be good. And Hoying and Romac have both been good in the past. So they're the kind of guys you keep an eye on. But there's just, especially given that they're both first basemen, I think Romac also qualifies, or maybe they're both first base / outfield, but those are both the two deepest positions on DraftKings. And I'm almost always finding somebody I'm more interested in for the money. But, anytime you get somebody who's been good in the past, if you want to differentiate yourself from the rest of the field, it can be worth thinking about. But from a pure value standpoint, I'm not big fans of either at the moment.
Not loving it. Low total, 9 runs right now via FanDuel. So maybe some value, probably not. Moving now into the Wiz Heroes game. This has one of the best pitchers in the league, Eric Jokic. You can see him there. A member of the Chicago Cubs a while ago, but now an ace of the Heroes. The Heroes did just lose Jake Brigham to an injury, and they're going to be relying even more on Jokic. Look at those numbers: 1.71 ERA, a WHIP less than 118 strikeouts. Some pretty impressive stuff. Is he going to be the go-to guy tonight for the Heroes?
He's definitely, I think he's the highest or second highest pitcher he's second highest pitcher on DraftKings in terms of price, and he deservedly so. I think I might even like him a little bit more than Drew Wyshynski of the Dinos. Jokic, if you like strikeout and walk numbers, he's got 18 strikeouts to just 4 walks. Pretty strong, and he's given up, I think, 3 earned runs in 4 starts and never more than 2. He's been just completely consistent, completely dominant all year. He's facing the Wiz, and that's not an easy assignment, but it's a whole lot easier without Baek-Ho Gong, the Wiz's star 20-year-old slugger who's out for a few weeks with a wrist injury. So that it's not the same Wiz that you saw earlier in the year, though they do still have some talent in the middle of the order with Mel Rojas specifically.
I was going to say Mel Rojas Jr., always a threat. Is he enough to deter you from switching from Jokic to Rosinski, or is Jokic your guy, even if Rojas is going to get hot in this tonight?
I'm still perfectly fine owning some Jokic. One great hitter like Rojas isn't enough to scare me away. If more people get scared off by the Wiz, then that just makes them even better, I think.
I like it. Moving now onto the Twins-Tigers matchup. Aaron Brooks, normally a star pitcher that would be at the top of any cheat sheet, but with the amazing slate, he's now maybe a 3-4 guy. And when we look at the Tigers overall, they're a good team, but maybe as of late, some unexpected struggles, especially against the Wiz coming after the beginning of this week. What are your thoughts on this series here?
Yeah, it's 2 pretty decent teams. Twins have been better so far, but they've both got plenty of talent. They're 2 good pitching teams, sitting in the top few spots in pitching, but the Twins have had a good lineup led by Roberto Ramos. The Tigers obviously have Preston Tucker, who's been great, but the rest of their guys haven't chipped in quite as much. But there are definitely some pitchers to like in this series. Aaron Brooks tonight, again, if you like your strikeout to walk ratios, 23-3 is quite good. The Tigers should have Drew Gagnon pitching on Sunday. Again, he's 31-5 in strikeouts to walks there. So if you're into that sort of thing, which I definitely am, I like a guy who is sitting down hitters without letting them even put the ball in play for sure. You've got a couple of the best in the league right now with the Tigers. But they are facing Roberto Ramos and Hyun-Soo Kim, among others, which isn't the easiest of matchups.
And speaking offensively now for the Tigers, they have one of the best American players over there, Preston Tucker. He got cold in that SK series. Can you update us a little bit about how he's done since? Has he bounced back? How's he been since that 16 hitless at-bats against the Wyverns?
I think he's been just a normal good hitter, maybe about four hits or so in his last series. He's still someone I'm perfectly interested in. He's not the hottest player in the league like he was last week, but you don't expect somebody to be that player for multiple weeks at a time. So he's interesting, along with the guy who hits right after him, Youngwoo Choi, is slightly cheaper. He's a veteran slugger, doesn't have quite the same gaudy numbers this year, but he's been perfectly fine, and he's been one of the best hitters for several years.
And just for anyone watching, these are expected lineups. RotoWire.com does have the entire list when they come out, when they're posted. So be the first to know. Head over to RotoWire.com to check out all these graphics and more. So moving on, we like the Tigers. We like Tucker. We like Brooks. Now moving on to the Bears and Giants, Lotte and Doosan series. Bears, they have another great offensive force in Jose Fernandez, and they've been pretty solid offensively if you look at the numbers, top 4 in every category, but the pitching has been horrendous, dead last in every category, and it hasn't quite, I mean, it's worked so far. How do you think this kind of all offense, no pitching or defense system has really worked for the Bears so far?
I don't think we're expecting them to be nearly this bad in pitching. I mean, they won the league last year, and they've been in the Korean Series 5 straight seasons. So I definitely would expect the pitching to start coming up. And the fact that they have a winning record despite having literally the worst pitching staff right now, it definitely is a positive sign for their future. One other thing to note about the Bears on the offensive side is they just got Jael O back from a side injury. He was on the injured list. He returned from the injury list yesterday or this morning, however you want to put that, but he only appeared as a pinch hitter. He's definitely someone I'm interested in, along with Fernandez and Kim, as the most expensive stack pretty much any day, but also one of the safest and best. But you'll have to pay attention to whether or not he's actually good to go from the start if you're thinking about playing him tonight.
And you said it. The Bears pitching has been horrendous, but was not expected to be this bad. Is there any value in looking at Alcantara, former Oakland A, for the Bears? Is he maybe going to change the momentum of the Bears pitching staff, or is he going to maybe struggle?
He's fine. That's kind of about where he is. You like him because he might get wins because the Bears are good. Doesn't really strike anybody out. His strikeout rate was 13.8% last year. So the odds of a high upside day where, he strikes out 10 to 12 guys and gets the win and throws 8 shutout innings or something like that, that's pretty low. And I haven't found him generally to be cheap enough to be interested given his lack of strikeouts, but there's nothing wrong with him. He's just a fine pitcher overall.
And moving on now, actually not speaking of a fine pitcher, but speaking of an excellent pitcher in Drew Rosinski now, probably the best series, I'd say. Well, at least the best team, NC Dinos, taking on the Samsung Lions. Lions have been okay, 8-13, not amazing, not horrible. But Rosinski, he's going to be leading them tonight. And I got to ask, will the Dinos ever lose again? I mean, they are on fire right now. If you look at that, their record so far. I mean, W after W. Are they just a clear favorites right now and just going to ride basically anyone that's on that team?
I mean, there's nobody playing nearly as well as them right now. They're outscoring opponents by nearly 3 runs per game. As you see right there, they just swept the Heroes, who are a good team regardless of their record this year, and none of the games were even all that close. So definitely there's more Dinos who are interesting than just about any team. As I mentioned earlier, all 3 of their pitchers this series are ones that I think would have a good chance of earning a recommendation. This series is taking place at the most hitter-friendly park in the league, Daegu Samsung Lions Park. Easy one to remember for the Samsung Lions. But I trust the Dinos pitchers in this one, even in that park. They've already actually played in this park for the first series of the season, and the Dinos swept it. So really, from a park perspective, it's not enough to make me scared of the Dinos pitchers because they get to face the Lions lineup, which is quite weak. And it's enough to make me extra excited about all the Dinos hitters who are already quite good. I'm expecting to own quite a lot of Dinos in all 3 games this weekend.
And we just got a comment here saying they will never lose again with a little laughing emoji. ChoochCast commenting here. The comments are open for you guys watching on Twitter and Periscope. But you did mention Drew Rosinski being your number 1 option over Jokic over on the Heroes. Tell me a little bit why you love Rosinski so much. Is it just because of the the momentum that the Dinos bring to each and every game, or is there some specific numbers you really like about Drew?
Mostly tonight he gets the slight edge for me over Jokic because he gets to play the Lions and Jokic has to play the Wiz. The Lions offense is sitting in right around 6 despite having the most hitter-friendly home park, and they're without their top hitter, Jawook Koo. So There aren't many more friendly matchups. He's been definitely a shade less dominant than Jokic, but there's nothing wrong with those numbers, as you can see on his screen. So when you get a guy who's very good next to a guy who's elite, but the guy who's very good has a much friendlier matchup, he gets the slight edge for me.
I like it. He's got a great matchup. The Ohio State product will be on the bump today/tomorrow morning. So moving on now to injuries, though. Is there anyone of notable just kind of looking around the league? Jake Brigham was one of the biggest ones on Twitter. A lot of people were commenting on that one out at least 3 weeks. Is this a big blow to the Heroes, or do you think they can manage?
It's definitely a big blow. Anytime you lose one of your two foreign pitchers, that's going to be a problem. And they're already, doing worse than they expect. So it might take a bit for them to turn things around. He's one of the big ones. Jaiolo, who I mentioned earlier on the Bears, getting him back either now or soon is a big deal. He's somehow, after being out for a week or so, he got significantly cheaper on DraftKings, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it's not like he was playing and doing poorly. And you need some cheaper options if you're going to stack Bears because Jose Fernandez is deservedly ridiculously expensive. And Jaewon Kim is also way up there. So he is definitely somebody I'm keeping an eye on.
I like it. For more complete updates on all injuries happening in the world of KBO, head over to rotowire.com for the full update. We're running out of time here. Just want to keep this a quick chat about the KBO, under 20 minutes. But we do have some fan questions on Twitter. First one is by @SportsBobby. How much do you look at run margin when determining if a team is good? This is at our tag @RotoWireKBO. So how much do you look at run margin? We have some of the standings here. Nifty tool here can sort all by run margin here. Of course, the top team's going to have a little better numbers than the bottom ones. Biggest difference is maybe the Wiz, who have a great run margin but are under 500. How much do you look at that when making your stacks and making your picks?
I definitely look at it quite a lot. Win record can be, obviously it's the only thing that matters in the end, but it can be a little bit fluky at times. You see teams win games you don't expect them to and lose games they don't expect them to. Runs tend to be a little bit more of an accurate representation over a large margin. Of course, early in the season, things can be skewed. If you get one team who, say, has a blowout win by 15, but 12 of those runs are scored against, the weakest pitchers in the opposing bullpen because they knocked the starter out after 2 innings, that's going to skew your overall run differential. I wish that there was a stat out there that was something like run differential, but we cap it in any given game at ±5 or something like that. If anyone did something like that, I would be interested to see what it looks like. That's the one area where it can go wrong. But just like any stat, I mean, if you're putting all your faith in one stat without looking at what goes into it, you're going to be slightly misled. So the fact that can happen doesn't make it in any way useless. It's definitely something I would be checking out.
I like that because you see the Bears 12-8 record on the year, number 3 in the league, but yet a negative run differential. So maybe it's still a little too early to tell anything definite about these teams in terms of actual run production. So next question. Now moving on to another Twitter Q&A. Always tag us in your questions @RotoWireKBO. Does age play a big factor in the KBO like it does in Major League Baseball, with older players having to be really good or they're cut? What are your thoughts on this, Eric? We got the some numbers here. Pitchers tend to skew a little younger, batters a little older. What do you think about the older guys in the KBO?
All right, that's an interesting question. So if you look at the 3 MVP finalists in the KBO last year, the top 3 guys were Josh Lindblom, Yuji Yang, and Hyunjong Yang, all 3 of which were at least 30, maybe all 3 were over 30. I was looking back at the MLB MVP winners, and I don't believe there's one who won it in his age 30 season since Miguel Cabrera back in 2013. So it definitely seems to be a factor that the stars in KBO skew a bit older or can stay good a bit longer. Trying to think of a reason why. It might be that the high-end athleticism in the KBO is toned down slightly from MLB. Obviously, these guys are all fantastic athletes, way better than me, but the MLB is just on another level. You can look at just like pitcher velocity as an example. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things, obviously, what makes aging is you lose your athleticism just a tiny bit. and I wouldn't be surprised if the high end in the KBO is slightly lower, that it might hurt you a little bit less if you lose a step in the KBO, whereas in MLB, when you're regularly facing guys throwing 95, 97, 99 all game, every game, it might catch up to you slightly sooner. That's just a theory. I'm not a physiologist or whatever, but that would make sense to me.
I like that. You explained that pretty well. That's a good question, Sarah. Hopefully you have your answer now. And that's pretty much going to take us to the end of our show here. Thanks for everyone tuning in. You can watch a replay of this at RotoWire on YouTube. Just search RotoWire. Follow us on Twitter at RotoWireKBO, RotoWire.com for all your KBO resources. We got some really great stuff over there, the resources, the tools. All the graphics today were courtesy of the website right there. So I'd recommend it. Eric, you use the website. I got to say, it's pretty clean, right?
Yep, couldn't do my job without it. Not just because they pay me to do it, but also because I'm on there all the time for stats and information. So
great. Well, we got our final 3 games of the week in our KBO action. I mean, wake up time still not easy. You're pulling all nighters or waking up at 5:30 on the East Coast, but you get some live baseball, so nothing to complain about there.
yeah, thanks for coming, guys.